Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and we are back with Lesson 6 in your blue Saxon book. So the first thing we're going to do today is talk about decimals and how to read them. So the first thing we need to do is focus on this little chart that's on page 20 of your book, and we're talking about decimal numbers. And so, remember, here is our decimal. This nice little yellow place here is our decimal point. And as we move to the left, we've already talked about the place value. The ones place, the tens place, the hundreds place, the thousands place, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions. Now, every time we move one space to the left, we multiply by 10. Well, the same thing is true as we move to the left, except now as we move to the right, as we move to the right, we're dividing by 10. So we go from here, which is the ones place, we move one to the left, and it's the 1/10. We divide by 10, we divide by 10 again, we divide by 10 again, by 10 again. Each time we move to the right, we're dividing by 10. And that pattern continues. Look, over here, 10,000 divided by 10, 1,000. 1,000 divided by 10, 100. 100 divided by 10, and then 10 divided by 10 is 1. And we just continue the same pattern that's going on both to the left and the right of the decimal point. So now as we look at these points, notice that there is a ones place, but there is not a oneths place, because 1 divided by 10 is 1/10, or the tenths place. So each place is, as we move this way, 10 times, as we move this way, dividing by 10. So that is your decimal layout there of your place value, and you need to learn that. Okay, so now we're working on decimals and how to read them. And your textbook does this in a way differently than I've seen before, but it works. You have been putting commas to the left. In other words, when you start with a decimal place and we go 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. Now we know how to read the left-hand side is 4,165,283. But the question is, how do we read the parts to the right? So this is a part of a whole, and we're going to read this as 61,805, and then we're going to name the place that is that spot. So this is the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, hundredths, thousands. So we're going to say 61,805 hundred thousandths. And that is how we would read the number. In order to keep track of the numbers, your Saxon book recommends that at least at the start of reading, that you start at the right-hand side and you put a comma there. Now, I've never seen that done in any other math book, so this is not mathematical protocol. But I think what he's trying to do is just help you in saying the number. We don't leave commas on this side of the number. This is just an aid to help you read the number. So basically, because we put a comma there, it would be 61,805, and then we call out the name of this place, which was 100,000ths place. So now in the next number, we're going to, again, as we start at the 0, we're going to put our comma to the left like we always do. And your Saxon book is suggesting that you start here on the right and put a comma 3 in. So in other words, it's letting you know that you have no thousandths, so no thousands. So you would say 162, and then that would be the 10,000ths place. I personally think that this comma is a little confusing. So I probably would not Use that. I think it may help you in reading it, but we don't see numbers left with commas there. So if you can understand that this comma that you're putting here is just a reading tool, that's fine. If it becomes confusing, I would leave it out altogether and just read the number that you have over here, 162, and then know that that is the 10,000th place. So this whole number would be 4,165, and we call the decimal place is the and 162 10,000ths. Okay, so here we have a number that's got a lot of places. So this is where the Saxon book is recommending that you put a little comma there. But like I said, you do not leave the comma there as your final answer. You can just put the comma there as a little reading aid just to know what number you have on that side. And then again, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. This one here is going to be the 100,000th place here. So you need to know what the place value is that you're going to call out at the end. So here we have so many numbers that commas are kind of helpful here. We always start at the decimal place as we move left. So that's going to be 7,108,000, 21,578 100,000ths. Okay, so that one was kind of complicated. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, so 7,108,000 and 21,578 100,000ths. I think the first time I read it, I left off the and. So that's going to take a little bit of practice. We're going to do a couple more of those before we move on. Okay, these were in your practice set. So this one on the left, if we start here and we move to the left, 1, 2, 3, comma, and then over here we just have the 65, and then this place here is the thousandths place. So let's read the whole thing. 7,065 thousandths. All right, look at this one down here. We have a decimal place here with only a 42 in the front of it. So we'll look over here. We've got a lot of places, but we only have 617 back here. So the key thing is to find out what is the name of this place right here. So tenths, hundred thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millionths. Okay, so this is the millionths place. So now we're going to say 42 and 617 millionths. The next little section is about how to add and subtract decimals. When we add and subtract decimal numbers, we must line the decimals up right on top of each other, because we have to add the tenths place with the tenths place and the hundredths place with the hundredths place, and so forth and so on. The place value matters. So here we're going to write 6.231, and then we're going to add it to, put the decimal in the right spot, 0.044. So now when we add that together, we're going to get 1 plus 4. And notice that both of these places are in the thousandths place. So they weigh the same amount, and they're worth the same place value. So we end up with a 5 and a 7 and a 2 and a decimal and a 6. So the sum would be 6 and 275 thousandths. So now on this one, I made this one a little bit different than your book is, because I made one with 4 decimal places and one with 3 decimal places, just so that you would know what to do when you came to a problem like that. So we've got 6.2312 and then 0.044. Notice that I've got a spot over here. I am always allowed to fill that empty spot with a 0, because a trailing 0, one that follows after all the numbers, is not a problem at all. It means nothing. So here we are subtracting. So we're going to have 2 take away 0 is 2. And 1 take away 4 doesn't work, so we're going to come over here and we're going to borrow. And then bring that over here. So we got 11 take away 4 is 7. And then 2 take away 4 doesn't work, so we're going to come over here and borrow. And 12 take away 4 is 8. And then 1 take away 0 is 1 and decimal. And 6 take away 0 is 6. Okay, so that would be the answer. Now, let's do our little bit of practice with our reading. This answer down here is 6 and 1,872 10,000ths. Okay, so now we're going to multiply decimals. All right, now we are multiplying decimals together, and when we're multiplying, we do not line the decimals up. We line up the decimals with addition and subtraction, but not multiplication. So when we do this, we do the multiplication in the same way that we do normal multiplication, except that at the end, we're going to take care of our decimals. Other than that, we ignore our decimals till the very end. So we have 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. And now we're done with that partial product. We go to the next one. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. And notice I'm trying to keep everything evenly spaced. And the last partial product will be 2 times 6 is 12. Now remember, each time I move over one place, because each time I'm multiplying by a multiple of 10 from the one I did before. So that's what place value does. 2 times 6 is 12. And then 1 times 6 is 6 plus 1 is 7. And then 4 times 6 is 24. So I'm going to put the 24 way over there, trying to keep everything lined up here. And then lastly, I'm going to add all my partial products together. And I get 11, 12, 13, and 10, and 6, and 2, and now I take care of my decimal. I have 1, 2, 3 places behind the decimal, 1, 2, 3 places behind the decimal. So let's read this new number here. So this is the product, because this was the multiplicand and the multiplier and the product. So now we have 260 and 384,000. Okay, let's look at our practice problems here so that you know how to do your homework. Let's look at A and B. I didn't want to write all that out. So A says 5,000 and 742 10,000ths. So what the and is going to be our decimal. So we're going to write 5,000 and, that's my decimal, 742 10,000ths. So here we go. Here is our finished number, 5,000 and 742 10,000ths. So I had to put a 0 to hold the spot, because tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths place. My number has to end in the 10,000ths place, because that's what they said. So I end up having to put a 0 to hold the spot that is in the tenths place. Okay, so look at the next one, B, 642 and 75 thousandths. 642 and 75 thousandths. So this thousandths place is the third place after the decimal. And so I'm going to need to have a little 0 in there. And the and is my decimal place. So let's see how that one looks. Okay, so here's our answer. 642 and 75 thousandths. So the thousandths place has to be the end of the part behind the decimal. So we have to have a 0 again there to hold the spot. Okay, so remember, when we're doing subtraction, we must line up our decimals. So 44.0162, and then we're going to subtract 0.1420. So when we subtract, 2 minus 0 is 2, 6 minus 2 is 4, and then 1 minus 4 we're going to have to borrow, but notice we have to go way over here and borrow from the 4, make that a 10, cross that out, make that a 9. Now we have an 11. 11 take away 4 is 7, 9 take away 1 is 8. There's my decimal, and then a 3 and a 4. So we would read that answer as 43 and 8,742 10,000ths. And here's our last problem for this section. We're going to do a multiplication that is your last practice problem. And I usually like to put the bigger number on the top, so it really will work both ways. But I would rather do 3 partial products than 4 partial products. So 0.064 times 5.22. Remember, when we're multiplying, we do not line up the decimals. We do right justify, which means we pull all the numbers all the way to the right. So 4 times 2 is 8, 6 times 2 is 12, and 0 times 2 is 0 plus the 1, and then 0 times 2 is 0. Now, because we're multiplying the next one by 2 again, we did a 2, and now we're going to multiply by another 2. We don't even have to do it. We can just copy all of these in indent 1. So instead of putting it here, we're going to come over here. 8, 2, 1, 0. And now we're going to multiply by the 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 2 is 32. And then 0 times 5 is 0 plus the 3, and then the 0. And now we're going to add our 3 partial products together. 8, 10, 4, 3, 3, 0. Okay, and then we're going to count our decimals. 1, 2, 3, 4. See the places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places after the decimals. There's a decimal and there's a decimal in case you can't see them very well. So I start at the right here, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the answer is 0.33408. Now let's see, does that make sense? Okay, we started with 0.064. That's a pretty tiny number. Okay, so times 5, but 0 times 5 is going to be 0. So our number is very small because the 5 times the 6 is the first thing that really counts much. So the 5 times the 6 is the 30, and that's why we end up with a 33 right there, but it's still 0.33408. And that is the end of lesson 6, and now you get to go do your homework. And this is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.